r/the10thDentist. Blue Natty says, the concept of war crimes makes no sense. War crimes are described as inflicting unnecessary suffering during war, but war itself is not necessary. So, every act committed in war causes unnecessary suffering, and is therefore a war crime. But then the concept of war crimes makes no sense. Putin is charged with war crimes, but we don't expect him to appear in court, so clearly that's just symbolic. But if we are going to make symbolic laws, we should just outlaw war altogether. There's no ideal standard on how to conduct war. That's like saying there's an ideal way to commit a murder. Or that torture is permissible if you just do it in a certain way. There isn't an acceptable or humane way to burn down a country and its people. Edit. A lot of people seem to think I'm implying that people shouldn't defend themselves when attacked. That's not the point of this post, and saying people should be allowed to defend themselves when attacked is not an argument for the necessity of wars. Just like how it's okay to kill someone in self-defense is not an argument for the legalization of murder. We discern between violence and appropriate response. I never said people shouldn't defend lives, and if that's the only problem people have with this post, then we don't disagree. My point was to say that I don't understand why we decided to outlaw specific acts of war instead of just outlawing war altogether. Edit 2. I'm actually surprised by how unpopular this opinion really was. I can't respond to every comment, but feel free to give me more constructive feedback. I've already learned some things about the laws of war that I was unaware of, so thank you for educating me. Not Too Dragon says, there are defensive wars where you don't need to torture your opponents. This would be cool if we could all agree on things, but we can't. Zanin says, this isn't r/10thDentist so much as r/dental school dropout. A lot of people hold this opinion, but that's because you and them are just not engaging with the moral framework. In general, everyone knows that calling something a war crime is mostly symbolic, since only the losers of the war go to prison or get executed. Putin will die of cancer, another age-related illness, or assassination long before he sees the inside of a jail cell. The idea for war crimes is that the base level morality is that killing each other in the context of war is for the most part acceptable. After that, it's whatever the powers that be decide. Things like not killing people who are actively surrendering, not killing medics, not raping and murdering civilians, exceptions being collateral damage during bombing runs, usually. It's all a big mess, and you can reject the framework if you want, but saying it doesn't make sense is intellectually lazy. r/the10thDentist. Rotica says, I wear a bra 24/7. I think I've seen this, but I share the same experience. I wear a bra/bralette all the time, except when I'm showering. I'm only not wearing one RNBC. The one I was wearing was so uncomfortable. But I wear it to sleep too. Grady404 says, upvoted because I don't wear a bra 24/7. I'm a dude. Shurjan69 says, I'm getting so swole I'm gonna starting needing one. And then I'm gonna wear a push-up to the gym to make them jealous. Glajan says, I do too. I find it uncomfortable when my nipples touch fabric other than a bra. Just feels better to wear one. Trickatrev54 says, is it because of the support? Or just don't like freeing the boobies? Rotica says, I got really used to it, and I feel uncomfortable not wearing one around people. Aggressive Alonia 3617 says, why? They are so uncomfortable. Frogler D says, for me, it's less comfortable to not wear a bra. When I was younger and a B-cup, a bra was optional. Now as a D, after pregnancy and some weight gain, or thin bralette for a little support at home, and at night feels better. r/the10thDentist. Rotten Blackfish says, straight teeth are ugly. I don't mean to shame anyone with straight teeth, and I don't think they always look bad. But I don't know why people seek to have perfectly square straight teeth, especially when they're all the same length. It has no character and makes you look weird and fake. It almost looks like veneers every time. Unlikely 12444 says, you really are the 10th dentist. Academic Eagle 4001 says, sorry I got braces to help my jaw issues. Teeth are meant to be mostly straight. When they are misaligned it can cause serious issues. It's not just about looks. Dark Enough to Dance says, exactly. The 10th dentist need to look over r/braces. NDA 2394 says, you mean veneers look like straight teeth lol. Robot Story Time says, I also like teeth with character. But I think most would disagree with you, so I upvoted. Robert says, what about gay teeth? Defaster says, but I don't know why people seek to have perfectly square straight teeth. I don't know about perfect straight teeth, but crooked teeth can cause a lot of health issues, which is why many people who have them usually get braces to straighten them. It's not just a vanity thing, like you seem to think. r/the 10th dentist. E4est says, I would have preferred the Sparks one with the always online concept by far. When the Sparks one was announced, I was hyped immediately because what everybody now calls the big frick up at the Sparks one announcement were the selling features for me. I already had been using two Sparks 360 consoles. One mine, one my sister's. What seemed to be a minor inconvenience at first turned out to be pretty expensive sooner than later. If I wanted to play multiplayer on both consoles, I had to buy 2 copies of the physical game. When our cousins were over for a family gathering, we actually were enough players to justify 2 consoles. The more games we got into, the more we would have had to buy twice. Obviously, the Xbox marketplace was even more expensive than that, but then Halo Reach was on sale for some ridiculously low price and I just went for it. We were just kidding around and tried to start it on both consoles at the same time and it just worked. We accidentally followed the right steps for game sharing, and later I found out how the console license and account license thing worked. Now I had a game for both consoles that I bought only once. System link, here we go, Kinect on. The 360 was another thing that my siblings and I were into a lot. We had Kinect Adventure and Fruit Ninja Kinect, but the controls and the voice commands, the first good and actually working voice commands that I experienced, amazed me the most. I also use the console for media streaming, and just saying Xbox pause felt futuristic and magical back in the day. A lot of love for the Xbox 360, but this is just the setup for why the Xbox One announcement was for me. You boot it up by saying Xbox, turn on, and it turned me on more than the console. This was the only command missing on the 360 to use it hands-free. A lot of media streaming stuff. Hell yeah, as a daily 360 user I have only seen improvements in that. Finally. Bundled with Kinect. Yes, finally the Kinect would not be a niche product and more developers have a reason to support it. Improved Kinect, the tracking worked while sitting down. 360 required full body tracking standing up with no obstacles. It worked as a Skype camera, and I sure as hell use this at least once a week. The camera had a high enough resolution to measure your pulse. I'm not kidding, you had to stand still, but it worked in Xbox Fitness, which I had the pleasure to use before it was shut down. It controls your TV via infrared signals. This was a big deal, because MSEC wasn't as widespread back then as today. Completely hands-free, not just the console. You could even use it to watch TV. Okay, admittedly, I was initially excited for this, but never used it. You could put the game and an app in snap mode on the same screen. I use that a lot for Youtube or Skype while playing along. 8 controllers on one console. Physical games are coupled to your account when you install them. This one first hit me with mixed feelings, but I immediately understood that this means I can share them. They even explained that you could have a home console that can play your games when you aren't logged in, and you could play them wherever you log in. Simultaneously even. Game sharing for physical games. In later statements they also clarified that the license can still be unlinked and the disc could be rented to friends or sold. The only drawback was that this required the console to be always online. Games would be shown and announced at Gamescom later that year. Cool. I was so excited for those news and didn't believe my eyes when everyone on the internet hated on the announcement. They basically just announced reselling of digital game licenses. We could have had a used market for digital game licenses. And we could have 2 players per disc. But Sony announced that the PlayStation 4 requires you to keep the game disc inside of the console like a caveman, and everybody loved it. They even removed some media features the PlayStation 3 had, like playing MP3 files. And everybody loved it. Multiple million balls exploded because helmets in the distance in Call of Duty Ghost looked more spiky on the Xbox than on the PlayStation, caused by the fact that the Xbox reserved resources for the OS features. The PlayStation had basically no OS features. And everybody loved it. People constantly complained about the fact that the console needed to be online, but somehow hypocritically missed the fact that they are online all the time anyway. I just want to put the disc into my console and play. Guess what? The disc is useless because you need a day 1 patch. Nevertheless, not only on Xbox. You have to install the damn game anyway because it's not booted from the disc but from the HDD, no matter whether you bought the physical game or the digital game. You know where else I can get the same experience? On the almighty PC. It basically has no used game market because all games are digital licenses. Do people complain? No, they throw their money at Valve for doing the exact same thing. Have you ever purchased a physical copy of a Valve game? Guess what? I bought Counter-Strike 1.6 and Portal 2 on disc for PC. After redeeming the boxed key, I could throw the disc away, it's worthless. Even if you would use it to install the game, it still requires an account with the license. You obviously cannot use the bundled key another time. After installing, you need updates for the game the size of the entire game, because the disc's content is completely obsolete. But people love it, and Microsoft got shat on for a console with those things. The console would have been perfect and the backlash pushed them into castrating it. I would have preferred the Xbox One with the always online concept by Boyster Alsham says. Nap, hardware with hard internet requirements are basically dead concepts. Like, sure, we do have a lot of internet connected devices, but there are almost always offline alternatives for them. This is because, no matter how much you would like to believe it, the internet is currently not, and will never be universally accessible. Not everyone has access to the internet, and not everyone has access to high-speed internet. Always online is basically a big mistake. Particular Dig 1112 says. There is nothing more annoying than playing NMS and getting kicked out because the Wi-Fi went out, despite it being an offline compatible game. Especially given the fact that I live in the middle of, nowhere. The Wi-Fi going out is no rare occurrence, so I have to deal with this all the time because of a useless curse Microsoft decided to give the Xbox. Also, I literally can't play Diablo 4 because if I go near a player it puts me into online mode and everything immediately starts teleporting and I can't hit anything, all because there's no option to disable online features for no reason. Igotman 69420 says. Always online is simply a method for corporations to control your software, so they can cancel old games that aren't making profit, and you'll be forced to pay for a new one, and to prevent piracy and etc. Big Emil 13 says, someone hypocritically missed the fact they're always online anyway. For somebody complaining about money, you're sure making an argument from an awfully privileged position. I can't always afford my internet bill. I'd still like to be able to play the games I worked hard to earn money for and spent that money on. The reason everyone freaked out is because it sets a precedent by which you no longer possess ownership of games you paid for. You only have access to them online. How hard is it to implement some form of a compromise where they allow this sort of thing, or hell, they even allow people to opt into it or sell it as a service, and bam, problem solved. It's no longer mandatory and they are making additional money off of it. The thing is, they could have easily thought of this. I'm sure somebody has, but they don't care to implement it because their ultimate goal is to turn games into something you no longer buy and own, but something you pay for as a live service. That's a terrible idea that's anti-consumer and puts all the power into the hands of absurdly powerful and greedy multi-billion-dollar corporations. Seriously though, not only is this naive of you, it's legitimately shitty. I work at a factory, and sometimes it's between rent and internet. Games are my escape from my shitty job and life. Don't try to take that away from me, because it's more convenient for you that way. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.